The enslavement. The storm raged outside, battering the small escape pod as it hurtled through the atmosphere of an unknown world. Inside, 14-year-old Zara clutched her younger sister Mira tightly, trying to shield the 12-year-old from the violent shaking. Their parents had shoved them into the pod just moments before their research vessel was destroyed by alien attackers. "It'll be okay," Zara whispered, unsure if she was trying to reassure Mira or herself. "Mom and Dad said someone would come for us." The pod slammed into the ground with bone-jarring force. For several long moments, the sisters lay stunned. Then Zara fumbled for the hatch release, her fingers trembling. "We need to get out and find shelter," she said. "Come on, Mira." But as the hatch hissed open, they found themselves staring up at the barrel of an alien weapon. The creature holding it resembled a bipedal feline, with slitted yellow eyes and wickedly sharp claws. It snarled something in an unfamiliar language. More of the cat-like aliens emerged from the mist surrounding the pod. One reached in and roughly dragged the girls out, paying no heed to their cries of pain and fear. "Please," Zara begged. "We're just lost. Our parents." A sharp blow silenced her. The alien leader growled and gestured to his subordinates. Manacles were clamped around the girls' wrists and ankles. They were shoved into the back of a hovering transport vehicle. As the vehicle rose into the air, Zara caught a glimpse of the desolate landscape. Jagged rock formations jutted up from barren red soil. In the distance, she saw the towering walls of some kind of industrial complex. The reality of their situation began to sink in. No one knew where they were. No rescue would be coming. They were alone and at the mercy of these hostile aliens. The transport docked inside a cavernous hangar. Zara and Mira were hauled out and marched down grim metal corridors. They passed holding cells filled with a variety of alien species. Some cowered in corners while others hurled themselves at the force fields, howling in rage or despair. Finally, they were shoved into a small cell of their own. The force field crackled to life behind them. Mira burst into tears, clinging to her sister. "What's going to happen to us?" Zara stroked her hair, fighting back her own tears. "I don't know, but we'll face it together. I promise I'll keep you safe." It was a promise she wouldn't be able to keep. The next few weeks passed in a blur of misery and terror. The sisters were subjected to harsh orientation, a brutal regimen designed to break their spirits and accustom them to their new lives as slaves. They were stripped of their clothes and possessions, hosed down with icy water, and given meager, scratchy tunics to wear. Their long hair was roughly shorn. Every waking moment was filled with grueling physical labor, hauling heavy loads in the planet's mines and refineries. The slightest infraction earned vicious beatings. The alien overseers seemed to take particular delight in tormenting the humans, who were a new addition to their workforce. "Stupid monkey children," they would snarl in their harshly accented English. "So weak, so useless. You'll learn your place soon enough." At night, Zara and Mira huddled together on the cold floor of their cell, too exhausted to even speak. Zara's body ached from the day's toil, but her mind raced. She had to find a way out of this nightmare. She had to save Mira. But as the days stretched into weeks, and then months, hope began to fade. Their world narrowed to an endless cycle of work, punishment, and fitful sleep. Even Zora's dreams of escape diminished. The complex was too secure, the alien technology too advanced. What chance did two human children have against an entire world of hostiles? Still, she clung to one last shred of defiance deep in her heart. She wouldn't let them break her completely. Somehow, someday, she would find a way to fight back. That chance came nearly a year into their captivity. It was another gruelingly hot day in the scrapyards. Zara and Mira had been assigned to salvage duty, picking through mountains of discarded machinery and electronics for anything of value. The sisters had been separated, each told to tackle a different area of the vast junkyard. Zara's arms and back ached as she hefted twisted hunks of metal and plastic. Her throat was parched, but she didn't dare stop to take a water break. The overseers were always watching, quick to punish any perceived slacking. As she clambered over a particularly treacherous pile of debris, the unstable mound shifted beneath her. With a yelp of alarm, Zara tumbled down the slope. She crashed to a stop at the bottom, the air driven from her lungs. For a moment, she lay there dazed. Then her survival instincts kicked in. She had to get up before an overseer saw her. Wincing, she pushed herself to her hands and knees. That's when she saw it. The impact of her fall had dislodged a layer of rust and grime from a massive metal object half buried in the scrap. As Zara's eyes traced its outline, her breath caught in her throat. It was unmistakably of human origin. The sleek lines, the faded insignia. This was a machine of war from Earth. Zara's mind raced. How had it ended up here? The aliens must have salvaged it from some long-ago battle. And now it lay forgotten in this cosmic junkyard. Her heart began to pound. This was it, the chance she'd been waiting for. If she could somehow reactivate this war machine, they might have a fighting chance. But she'd have to be careful. If the aliens discovered what she was up to, the punishment would be severe, perhaps fatal. Zara glanced around furtively. No overseers in sight. Quickly, she began to clear away more of the debris concealing the war machine. As more of it was revealed, her excitement grew. It was even bigger than she'd first thought. Some kind of massive robotic exosuit, or mech, if the systems were still functional. A shout from nearby made her jump. An overseer was calling for the slaves to begin heading back to the compound. The work shift was ending. Reluctantly, Zara clambered down from the scrap heap. She'd have to be patient. Finding a way to repair the war machine would take time. But for the first time in months, Zara felt a spark of real hope. She allowed herself a small, secret smile as she fell into line with the other shuffling slaves. Soon, their alien captors would learn just how dangerous it was to underestimate humanity. Discovery of hope. The discovery of the buried war machine consumed Zora's thoughts. Each night, as she and Mira huddled together in their cramped cell, she wrestled with how to share the news with her sister. Mira had grown increasingly withdrawn over the months of captivity, and Zara feared crushing her fragile spirit if this spark of hope turned out to be false. Finally, after a week of secret planning, Zara decided it was time to confide in Mira. As they lay in the darkness, she whispered, "Mira, I found something. Something that might help us escape." Mira stirred, her voice barely audible. "What do you mean?" Zara described the massive human war machine she'd uncovered in the scrapyard. As she spoke, she felt Mira's body tense with a mix of fear and excitement. "But how can we fix it?" Mira asked. "We don't know anything about that kind of technology." Zara squeezed her sister's hand. "We'll figure it out. We have to try." The next day, Zara managed to convince one of the overseers to assign her and Mira to the same section of the scrapyard. As they picked through the mountains of debris, Zara led them closer to where the war machine lay hidden. When they were sure no overseers were watching, Zara showed Mira the partially uncovered mech. Mira's eyes widened in awe. "It's huge," she breathed. "Do you really think we can make it work?" Zara nodded determinedly. "We have to. It's our only chance." Over the next few weeks, the sisters worked carefully to uncover more of the mech without drawing attention. They used their limited break times to examine its systems, trying to make sense of the complex machinery. Zara's mind raced with the challenge. She'd always been fascinated by technology, spending hours in her parents' lab back on Earth. Now she drew on every scrap of knowledge he could remember. One day, as they were examining the mech's central control panel, Mira made a breakthrough. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a faded insignia. "I recognize that symbol. It's from the old Earth Defense Force." Zara's heart leaped. The Earth Defense Force had been humanity's primary line of defense against alien threats before the current war. If this mech was EDF technology, it might be more advanced than she'd initially thought. Their progress was painstakingly slow. They could only work on the mech for a few minutes each day without arousing suspicion, and the technical challenges were immense. Many systems were damaged or corroded from years of neglect. But gradually, piece by piece, they began to bring the sleeping giant back to life. Zara focused on the mech's power systems, while Mira worked on deciphering its control interfaces. They scavenged parts from the surrounding scrapyard, improvising repairs with whatever materials they could find. There were setbacks and close calls. Once, an overseer nearly caught them as they were hastily covering up their work. Another time, a power surge almost gave away their secret as lights flickered across the mech's control panel. But with each small victory, the sisters' determination grew stronger. They were no longer just surviving. They were fighting back. As weeks turned into months, the changes in Zara and Mira became noticeable. They stood straighter, their eyes burning with purpose. The other slaves whispered about them, sensing something had changed but unable to guess the truth. The aliens, too, sensed the shift. The overseers watched the sisters more closely, suspicious of their newfound resilience. Punishments became more frequent and harsh, but Zara and Mira endured them silently, protecting their secret. One evening, as they lay battered and bruised in their cell after a particularly brutal beating, Mira turned to her sister. "Zara," she whispered, "I'm scared. What if we can't do this? What if we get caught?" Zara pulled her sister close, ignoring the pain from her own injuries. "We can do this," she said fiercely. "We have to. Not just for us, but for everyone trapped here. We're going to show these aliens what humans are really capable of." Mira nodded, drawing strength from her sister's conviction. Together, they drifted into an uneasy sleep, dreaming of freedom and retribution. The next day brought a major breakthrough. As Zara was working on the mech's central processor, she accidentally triggered a boot sequence. The control panel hummed to life, holographic displays flickering into existence. Zara's heart raced as she quickly shut it down before anyone could notice. But that brief moment had shown her something crucial. The mech's AI core was intact. She shared the news with Mira that night. "If we can fully reactivate the AI," she explained, "it might be able to guide us through the rest of the repairs, maybe even teach us how to pilot it." Mira's eyes shone with excitement. "How long do you think it will take?" Zara considered. "A few more weeks, maybe. We're close, Mira. So close." But their progress hadn't gone entirely unnoticed. The head overseer, a particularly cruel alien named Vex, had been watching the sisters with growing suspicion. He sensed they were hiding something, and he was determined to find out what. As Zara and Mira returned to their cell that night, they found Vex waiting for them. His yellow eyes gleamed with malice. "You too," he snarled, "have been up to something. I can smell it." Zara stepped protectively in front of Mira. "We don't know what you're talking about," she said, struggling to keep her voice steady. Vex's claws shot out, grabbing Zara by the throat. "Lie to me again, little monkey, and I'll make you watch as I tear your sister apart." Terror gripped Zora's heart, but she met Vex's gaze defiantly. She couldn't betray their secret. Everything depended on it. Vex studied her for a long moment, then released her with a disgusted growl. "You're hiding something, and I will find out what it is. Your kind always breaks in the end." As he stalked away, Zara and Mira clung to each other, trembling. They knew time was running out. They had to complete the mech's repairs before Vex discovered their plan. The race against time had begun. With renewed urgency, the sisters redoubled their efforts. Every free moment was spent working on the mech, pushing themselves to the brink of exhaustion. They were so close now. The mech's systems were coming online one by one. Power flowed through its massive frame. The AI core was beginning to respond to their inputs. But as their goal came within reach, the dangers multiplied. Vex increased his surveillance, assigning more guards to watch the scrapyard. The sisters had to be more careful than ever, always looking over their shoulders. Despite the growing risk, Zara and Mira pressed on. They had come too far to give up now. Freedom was within their grasp, and with it, the power to fight back against their oppressors. As they worked feverishly to complete the final repairs, both sisters knew that soon, very soon, the moment of truth would arrive. They would either succeed in their daring plan or face consequences more terrible than they could imagine. The fate of not just their own lives, but potentially all of humanity in this sector of space, hung in the balance. The war machine slumbered, waiting to be awakened, and when it rose, the galaxy would tremble. Trials and tribulations. The oppressive heat of the alien world beat down on Zara as she trudged through the scrapyard, her body aching from another night of fitful sleep. Beside her, Mira stumbled, dark circles under her eyes betraying her exhaustion. They had been pushing themselves to the limit, working on the mech whenever they could steal a moment away from the watchful eyes of the overseers. But the constant fear of discovery was taking its toll. As they neared the hidden location of the war machine, Zara noticed something that made her blood run cold. Fresh claw marks scored the ground around the scrap heap, concealing their secret project. "Mira," she whispered urgently, "they've been searching here." Mira's eyes widened in fear. "Do you think they found it?" Zara shook her head. "I don't think so. The camouflage we rigged seems to be holding, but we need to be more careful." They quickened their pace, using the noise of the scrapyard to cover the sound of their movements as they slipped inside the partially uncovered mech. The sisters had managed to create a small hidden entrance, just large enough for them to squeeze through. Inside, the air was stale and thick with the scent of oil and metal. Zara immediately set to work on the power core, while Mira focused on the navigation systems. They worked in tense silence, acutely aware that every second increased their risk of discovery. Suddenly, Mira let out a small gasp of triumph. "Zara, look! I think I've got it." Zara hurried over to her sister's side. The navigation display flickered to life, showing a rudimentary map of the surrounding area. It wasn't much, but it was progress. "Great work," Zara said, squeezing Mira's shoulder. "Now if we can just get the main reactor online." Her words were cut short by the sound of heavy footsteps approaching. The sisters froze, hardly daring to breathe. Through a small gap in the mech's armor, they could see an overseer prowling nearby, sniffing the air suspiciously. For several agonizing minutes, they remained motionless, praying the alien wouldn't discover their hiding place. Finally, the overseer moved on, and they allowed themselves to breathe again. "That was too close," Mira whispered, her voice shaking. Zara nodded grimly. "We need to finish this soon. We're running out of time." Over the next few days, their progress slowed to a crawl. The overseers had increased their patrols, making it nearly impossible for the sisters to work on the mech without being seen. They were forced to work in short bursts, constantly looking over their shoulders. To make matters worse, Vex seemed to have taken a personal interest in their activities. He would appear unexpectedly, his yellow eyes gleaming with suspicion as he questioned them about their work. One afternoon, as Zara was attempting to realign the mech's targeting systems, Vex's voice rang out across the scrapyard. "You there, human. What are you doing?" Zara's heart leaped into her throat. She scrambled to cover her work, praying Vex hadn't seen anything incriminating. "Just sorting scrap, sir," she called back, trying to keep her voice steady. Vex stalked closer, his nostrils flaring. "You reek of lies, little monkey. Perhaps sometime in the isolation chamber will loosen your tongue." Zara's blood ran cold. The isolation chamber was notorious among the slaves, a place of sensory deprivation and psychological torture. Many who went in came out broken, if they came out at all. As Vex dragged her away, Zora caught Mira's eye across the scrapyard. She gave a slight shake of her head, silently urging her sister not to intervene. They couldn't risk both of them being taken. The next 48 hours were a nightmare for Zora. Locked in total darkness, with no sound but the pounding of her own heart, she fought to maintain her sanity. She recited technical specifications in her head, ran through repair procedures, anything to keep her mind focused on their goal. When she was finally released, stumbling and disoriented, Mira was there to catch her. As they made their way back to their cell, Mira whispered updates on the mech's status. She had managed to make some progress in Zara's absence, but time was running short. That night, as Zara lay recovering from her ordeal, a new complication arose. A group of alien dignitaries arrived at the complex, apparently for some kind of inspection tour. Security tightened even further, making it almost impossible for the sisters to access the mech. Days passed with no opportunity to work on their project. Zara and Mira watched in growing despair as their chance for freedom seemed to slip away. The other slaves noticed their distress, and whispers began to circulate that the human girls were planning something. One evening, as they huddled in their cell, Mira broke down. "Maybe we should just give up," she sobbed. "It's hopeless. We'll never finish in time." Zara pulled her sister close, her own eyes burning with unshed tears. "We can't give up," she said fiercely. "Not when we're so close. We just need one more chance." That chance came in the most unexpected way. The next day, as the alien dignitaries were touring the scrapyard, one of them expressed interest in seeing the slaves at work. Vex, eager to impress, ordered all available workers to demonstrate their skills. In the chaos that followed, with overseers distracted by the need to present a productive image, Zara and Mira saw their opportunity. They slipped away from the main group, making their way to the hidden mech. Working frantically, they managed to bring several more systems online. The mech's massive limbs twitched with the first sparks of artificial life. But just as they were about to attempt a full power-up sequence, disaster struck. One of the junior overseers, noticing their absence, had followed their trail. As the sisters emerged from their hiding place, they found themselves face to face with the snarling alien. "So this is what you've been hiding," the overseer growled, reaching for his communication device. "Vex will want to hear about this." In that moment, Zara made a split-second decision. They couldn't let their secret be revealed, not when they were so close. With a cry of desperation, she launched herself at the overseer, catching him off guard. The alien stumbled, his device clattering to the ground. Mira, understanding her sister's intent, grabbed a piece of scrap metal and brought it down on the overseer's head. The alien crumpled, unconscious but still breathing. The sisters stared at each other, the reality of what they'd done sinking in. There was no going back now. They had to act immediately. "We have to power it up," Zora said, her voice shaking. "It's now or never." Mira nodded, her face pale but determined. Together, they raced back into the mech, praying they had enough time to bring it fully online before their assault on the overseer was discovered. As alarms began to blare across the complex, the war machine's systems flickered to life. Displays lit up, servos whined, and the AI core hummed with awakening intelligence. Zara and Mira strapped themselves into the pilot seats, their hearts pounding. They had no idea if they could actually control this behemoth, but they were out of options. "Ready?" Zara asked, her hand hovering over the main ignition sequence. Mira gripped her sister's free hand tightly. "Ready." With a deep breath, Zara activated the mech. The war machine shuddered, decades of inactivity giving way to renewed purpose. As the scrap fell away from its massive frame, the mech rose to its full height, casting a long shadow over the stunned aliens gathering below. The moment of reckoning had arrived. The war for their freedom was about to begin. The uprising begins. The war machine's systems roared to life, sending tremors through the scrapyard. Zara and Mira sat in a cramped cockpit, their hands flying over unfamiliar controls as they struggled to understand the mech's capabilities. "Weapons systems online," a synthetic voice announced, startling both girls. "It can talk." Mira gasped. "I am the Earth Defense Force AI. Designation Titan 7, the voice continued. "Please state your authorization code." Zara's mind raced. They hadn't anticipated this. "We don't have a code," she admitted, But we need your help. We're humans, and we've been enslaved by aliens. Will you help us fight?" There was a pause as the AI processed this information. Irregular situation detected. Initiating emergency protocols. Human life signs confirmed. Objective: protect human operators and neutralize alien threat. Relief washed over the sisters. They had an ally. Outside, chaos reigned. Alien overseers scrambled to mobilize defenses, their shouts of panic barely audible over the mech's thunderous movements. Vex's voice cut through the din, bellowing orders to his subordinates. "How do we move this thing?" Mira asked, her voice tight with tension. "Allow me," Titan 7 responded. The mech lurched forward, its massive feet crushing abandoned machinery. "I will handle locomotion and targeting. Please focus on strategic decisions." Zara nodded, her mind already racing with possibilities. "We need to free the other slaves," she said. "And we have to secure a way off this planet." As if in response to her words, a barrage of energy blasts struck the mech's armor. The sisters yelped in surprise, but Titan 7's voice remained calm. Minimal damage sustained. Shields at 98% capacity. Through the mech's view screens, they saw squads of armed aliens converging on their position. Hovering vehicles bristling with weapons descended from the sky. "Titan," Zara called out. "Can you target their weapons without killing them? We want to disable, not destroy." "Affirmative," the AI responded, adjusting targeting parameters. The mech's arms swung into action, precise beams of energy lancing out to strike the aliens' weapons. Explosions rocked the scrapyard as vehicle after vehicle crashed to the ground, their systems fried. Mira spotted a familiar structure in the distance. "There," she shouted. "That's where they keep the other slaves." Titan 7 altered course, each thunderous step bringing them closer to their goal. The mech's hands, each larger than a transport vehicle, ripped through the building's walls like paper. Inside, hundreds of slaves from various alien races stared up in awe and terror. "We're here to free you." Zara's voice boomed through the mech's external speakers. "Follow us if you want to escape." For a moment, nobody moved. Then, as the reality of the situation sank in, a cheer went up. Slaves began pouring out of the ruined building, their faces alight with hope for the first time in years. But their escape was far from assured. Vex had rallied his forces, and a new wave of attackers descended on the mech. Energy blasts and explosive projectiles rained down, many missing their mark and striking the fleeing slaves. "We need to protect them," Mira cried, watching in horror as several aliens fell. Titan 7 responded immediately, extending a shimmering energy field to cover the escaping prisoners. Diverting 30% power to defensive shields, the AI announced. "Warning, this will reduce offensive capabilities." Zara gritted her teeth. "Do it. Saving lives is our priority." As they fought their way across the complex, more and more slaves joined their growing liberation army. Those who could fight picked up discarded weapons, turning them against their former captors. Others helped the wounded or guided the way to freedom. The sisters' emotions were a whirlwind of exhilaration and terror. They had dreamed of this moment for so long, but the reality was far more chaotic and dangerous than they had imagined. "Zara." Mira's shout cut through her sister's thoughts. "Look!" Following Mira's gesture, Zara saw a massive hangar at the edge of the complex. Inside, they could make out the shapes of several spacecraft. "That's our ticket out of here," Zara said, her voice filled with determination. "Titan, can you get us there?" "Affirmative," the AI responded. "However, enemy resistance is increasing. Probability of reaching the hangar without casualties is low." Zara's mind raced, trying to formulate a plan. Then an idea struck her. "Titan, can you interface with those ships? Take control of them remotely?" There was a brief pause. "Accessing." "Affirmative. Alien technology is compatible with my systems. Remote interface possible." "Perfect," Zara said, a grim smile on her face. Here's what we're going to do. As they neared the hangar, Titan 7 began broadcasting on all frequencies. The mech's external speakers blared to life, Zara's voice echoing across the battlefield. Attention all alien forces. We have taken control of your ships. Stand down now, or we will use them against you. This is your only warning. To demonstrate their power, Titan 7 remotely activated one of the smaller craft. It rose from the hangar, its weapon systems powering up and targeting the alien defensive positions. The effect was immediate. Confusion rippled through the alien ranks. Some threw down their weapons, while others looked to their leaders for guidance. Vex's voice cut through the chaos, filled with rage. It's a bluff. Keep fighting, you cowards. But his words came too late. The tide had turned. More and more aliens surrendered, unwilling to risk annihilation at the hands of their own ships. As they reached the hangar, Zara and Mira were faced with a new challenge. How could they coordinate the escape of hundreds of former slaves on multiple ships? Titan, Zara asked, can you pilot these ships yourself? Affirmative, the AI responded. However, my primary function is to operate this mech. Splitting my processing power may reduce overall efficiency. Zara nodded, making a quick decision. Do it. Get as many people on those ships as you can. Mira and I will stay here in the mech to cover the escape. Mira looked at her sister in shock. But Zara, we started this, Zara said firmly. We need to see it through. As the freed slaves began boarding the ships under Titan 7's guidance, the sisters prepared for their last stand. They knew that Vex and his most loyal followers wouldn't give up without a fight. They didn't have to wait long. With a roar of fury, Vex himself appeared, piloting a massive battle suit that rivaled their mech in size. You miserable little monkeys, his voice boomed across the battlefield. I'll crush you myself. As Vex charged towards them, Zara and Mira steeled themselves for the fight of their lives. The fate of hundreds of freed slaves, and perhaps the future of humanity in this sector of space, rested on their shoulders. The final battle for freedom was about to begin. A new dawn for humanity. The ground shook as Vex's battle suit collided with the sisters' mech. Metal screeched against metal, sending sparks flying in all directions. Inside the cockpit, Zara and Mira were thrown against their restraints, the impact rattling their teeth. Structural integrity at 82%. Titan 7 reported calmly. Enemy unit appears to be of similar capabilities to this mech. Zara gritted her teeth, her hands tightening on the controls. We've come too far to lose now. Titan, give us everything you've got. The AI complied, diverting power from non-essential systems to weapons and shields. The mech's arms shot out, grappling with Vex's suit in a titanic struggle. As the two massive machines battled, the evacuation continued behind them. Ships filled with freed slaves began to lift off, streaking into the sky towards freedom. Each successful launch fueled the sisters' determination to hold the line. Vex's voice crackled over the comms, filled with rage and disbelief. How? How can two pathetic human children defeat me? Mira's voice was steel as she responded, because we're fighting for more than ourselves. We're fighting for everyone you've ever hurt, everyone you've enslaved. That's a power you'll never understand. The battle raged on, neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. Zara and Mira worked in perfect sync, their bond as sisters translating into an uncanny ability to anticipate each other's moves. Titan 7's advanced combat algorithms filled in the gaps in their experience, turning their mech into a formidable fighting machine. But Vex was no novice. His battle suit moved with the fluid grace of long practice, each attack calculated to exploit any weakness. The sisters found themselves constantly on the defensive, struggling to protect the last of the evacuating ships. As the fight wore on, fatigue began to set in. The constant jolts and impacts were taking their toll on the girls' bodies, and even Titan 7's systems were showing signs of strain. Warning, The AI announced, "Power levels critical. Estimated time to shut down, 10 minutes." Zara's heart sank. They were so close, but it seemed they might fall at the final hurdle. She looked at Mira, seeing her own fear and determination mirrored in her sister's eyes. "We need to end this," Zara said. "Titan, is there any way to overload the power core? Create an explosion big enough to take out Vex's suit." There was a pause as the AI calculated. Affirmative. However, the resulting explosion would also destroy this unit. Survival probability for pilots, less than 1%. Mira gasped, but Zara's face was set with grim resolve. "If that's what it takes to ensure everyone else gets away safely, then—" "Wait," Mira interrupted. "Titan, what if we transferred your core systems to one of the escaping ships? Could you remote pilot this mech for the final attack?" Another pause. Theoretically possible. However, transfer would leave the mech vulnerable for approximately 30 seconds. Zara nodded. "That's a risk we'll have to take." "Do it, Titan. And thank you for everything." As Titan 7 began the transfer process, the sisters made their move. They pushed their mech forward in a sudden burst of speed, catching Vex off guard. The momentum carried both massive machines towards the edge of a deep mining pit. "What are you doing?" Vex screamed, realizing too late the human's intention. With a final, mighty heave, Zara and Mira sent both mechs tumbling over the edge. As they fell, the girls released their restraints and leaped clear, using the mech's shoulder as a springboard. They hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. Behind them, there was an earth-shattering crash as the two war machines hit the bottom of the pit. For a moment, everything was silent. Then Titan 7's voice came through their portable communicators. "Transfer complete. Initiating overload sequence." The explosion that followed lit up the sky, sending a shockwave that knocked the sisters off their feet. When the dust settled, there was nothing left of the pit but a smoking crater. As Zara and Mira picked themselves up, they saw the last of the refugee ships descending towards them. They had done it. They had won their freedom, and the freedom of hundreds of others. In the days that followed, word of their daring escape spread like wildfire across the sector. The sisters found themselves at the center of a growing rebellion, their story inspiring countless other slaves and oppressed peoples to rise up against their captors. Titan 7, now integrated into the fleet's flagship, proved an invaluable ally. The AI's vast knowledge and strategic capabilities helped the fledgling rebellion evade capture and strike at key enemy targets. As their movement grew, Zara and Mira never forgot their roots. They made it their mission to return to every slave world they could find, freeing as many prisoners as possible. Each successful mission swelled their ranks and resources. Months turned into years, and the rebellion evolved into a full-fledged resistance movement. The sisters, now young women, found themselves leading an interstellar alliance of free peoples. Their ultimate goal was ambitious: to forge a new society where all sentient beings, regardless of species, could live in freedom and equality. It was a dream that would take decades to realize, but Zara and Mira were prepared for the long haul. As they stood on the bridge of their flagship, looking out at the stars, Mira turned to her sister. "Do you ever think about that day in the scrapyard, when we first found the mech?" Zara nodded, a small smile on her face. "Every day. It reminds me that even in the darkest times, there's always hope. You just have to be brave enough to seize it." Mira squeezed her sister's hand. "We've come so far, but there's still so much to do. And we'll do it together," Zara replied, her voice filled with determination. "For every slave still in chains, for every world still under the boot of tyranny, we'll keep fighting until the whole galaxy knows that humanity, and all free peoples, are a force to be reckoned with." As their ship jumped to light speed, carrying them towards their next mission, the sisters stood tall. They had started their journey as scared, enslaved children. Now they were the vanguard of a new era, one where the galaxy would tremble not at the approach of conquerors, but at the unstoppable march of freedom. The war machine they had awakened that day in the scrapyard had been just the beginning. Now, Zara and Mira were part of something far greater, a revolution that would reshape the stars themselves.